America is about to fall in love with Shelise Evans. Shelise is our very own senior closing specialist here at Fundex Solutions Group, and she joins me in the hot seat today to share her background and what it means to be a high-performing SBA closer. Shelise closes most of the 7A loans that I bring in as a BDO, and she's the best closer I've ever worked with. And by the end of this episode, you will understand why. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. If you're an SBA BDO, you're probably getting multiple calls every week from recruiters telling you about an amazing opportunity at an incredible shop with an open credit box and a strong comp plan. You got to at least hear them out, right? The truth is, most good BDOs can't move because they'd be leaving too much on the table for it to make sense. But alas, all good things must come to an end. When that time comes, how do you decide that critical next step? You need to talk to an industry insider who knows the market inside and out, an advisor that can cut through all the BS and tell you what it's really like to be a BDO at this bank or at that bank. Baker Lewis has 30 years experience, not just in recruiting, but in every aspect of SBA lending. They know the business and they're committed to helping people make the right move, even if that means they don't get a placement fee. If the time has come for you to consider a move, I'd encourage you to partner with an advocate like Baker Lewis, who will help you evaluate the market the way they would if they were making the move. An agent who can help you get the deal you didn't think was possible. Let me tell you folks, anything is possible. Call Baker Lewis. Shelise Evans, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I think you're the first SBA closer on the podcast, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And you're not just any closer. You're our closer.
Absolutely.
And you're an amazing closer. And I want to hear all about your background, how you got started, and then just take us up to where we are today. So Let's start at the beginning. How'd you get into SBA?
All right. It's a really funny story. So I was working for a community bank in North Jacksonville. Owner of the bank said, hey, I want to sell. I want to, retire, take care of my grandkids. So he did. And we were purchased by another big bank. Is it okay if I say names or not good?
Sure.
I mean, Fidelity purchased the community bank. And, when they came on board, they had their own folks that they planned to keep in certain positions. Well, at the community bank, I was in lending, but commercial lending. So that was a very exciting job. And I was like in tears because I thought there's nothing better than commercial lending. Like I knew it like the back of my hand. So I'm thinking, why would I ever want to leave this? But of course, it wasn't a choice. When the big bank came in, they brought in their own folks. And then it was like, okay, Shelise, you got to find something else. So believe it or not, a friend of a friend said, Shelise, there's a bank right down on the same street in Jacksonville, actually, that's looking for an SBA closer. And I said, oh, what's that? Never heard of SBA. I just knew lending as a whole, right? And so I thought, okay. Well, I'll give it a try. So recommendation. So I started doing research. Like, what is SBA? What does SBA do? It was so funny because one of my coworkers, she told me, she said, Shelise, you're going to hate it. Do not do SBA. There's so many rules. There's so many guidelines. She didn't know it was called SOP, but she said, there's a big book that's like this big. You're going to have to read it all the time. And you're going to have to keep up with all the ever-changing guidelines and rules and regulations. And honestly, right, that's what made me want to do it even more because I'm just that kind of person. Like if someone tells me, oh, you can't do it or it's going to be difficult. No, I want to be challenged. So I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go for it. And I went for it. And so I got hired at Florida Capital Bank in Jacksonville. Had an amazing mentor, Mary Perez. Loved her. When I had my interview with Mary, she told me, she said, Shelise, you're new. You're green. That's what she said. And she said, we love that because you're coming in, no ideas, no expectations. We're going to put into you what needs to be planted. And I thought, amazing. Okay, I'm ready. As long as you know I don't have any experience, you're going to have to train me here. And so they did. I fell in love with that desk because it was very challenging. I would go home from work and think about everything that I had learned that day and then prepare myself for the next day. So it's been about 7 years now that I've been in SBA, and I've just fallen in love with it. I mean, I'm always busy. There's always something going on my desk, but it's challenging, and I love that challenge. So SBA is my thing. I don't see myself doing anything else.
You know, I hear that from a lot of people that everyone, you fall into it by happenstance. And then once you're in it, it's like you never leave because you love it.
You love it. You know, it's one of those type of positions that it's like, if you love it, you love it. And if you hate it, you hate it. You're just not going to want any part of it. But once I got started to understand what my goal was as being a closer, that I was making borrowers' dreams come true. And let me rephrase, business dreams come true. So that was amazing to me.
Yeah, you know, and it makes a lot of sense. You've been doing this 7 years. I thought you were doing it much longer because you're really good at it, but now it actually makes sense because you came into it at a right time where you maybe didn't pick up bad habits from other shops and whatnot. So that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yes, yes.
Did you come up through banking? Because when you were conventional, were you always just at the bank?
No. No, that's the thing. I worked at Wells Fargo for a moment. I actually did RESPA. I was in mortgage lending. So I've had a few positions in banking, but my banking career actually started 7 years ago. And I've just kind of transgressed and went from different desks and then ended up with SBA.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. So that attitude that you had, like, I'm going to pick this up, and every day is different. You learn every day, and then I'm going to take that. I'm going to come back the next day. Like that thought process, like that's really smart. Not everyone has that. Some people shut their brain off at 5. Like, where did that come from, do you think?
I think it's an individual type of characteristic, if you will, because I'm just that kind of person where I love what I do, and you have to love it. Just as I stated earlier, I love my desk. I love what I do. I love my job. So my brain doesn't shut off. Sometimes that's the problem, because I go to bed thinking about, okay, I made my list of what's needed for tomorrow, but what about borrower C? Oh, wait, his equity's not right. Oh God, I got to look at that again. Or Ray called me about some insurance. Oh, don't forget that, Shelise. So these are all things I go to bed with in my head, but it's because I do love it. It's not stressful. Well, I'll take that back. There's sometimes it can be stressful. Closing days can be stressful. But for the most part, it's like I'm on 90. I envision myself when I start my day. Before I sit at my desk, I'm thinking, okay, you're getting ready to get into the airplane. Sit tight, put your seatbelt on, and go for the ride. Because that's what I feel. Because I could be in turbulence 1 second, the next second I'm smooth landing. It's just, I don't know. I just kind of compare it to being a pilot.
Well, that's why every time you close a loan, which happens quite often these days for you, I say like you've landed the plane so smoothly. So that's such a good analogy, because you are in control of the borrower's biggest probably transaction of their life, which is a big weight to handle, just like the pilot of a plane. And you land it and you make it look so smooth. And that's so, but you said closing days are crazy. So like take me behind the scenes on what closing day looks like for you.
Okay. So early in the morning, just early. I'm just going to say early. Most of the time, if I have a loan closing, let's say at 9, I'm probably up at 6 that morning, depending on where my borrower is located in the United States. So I'm up early. I'm going back through my files to make sure there's nothing missing there, and what I knew that we needed days prior to closing, I'm making sure that that's there. I have the help of an amazing attorney, Lewis and Kappas on Chandler Clark. He's amazing to work with. So I have his help with the closing as well. As far as ensuring that the documents are all executed like they're supposed to be, I set my eyes on the documents. He sets his eyes on the documents. But my first thing that I do on closing day is I have to prepare the loan package and send that via DocuSign to the borrower or borrowers, depending on how many there are. So I'm looking through each page of the document. It's already been validated. We've already corrected any errors that there may be on the documents, but I'm still going back because I'm just kind of like that. I just have to go back and look again to make sure we didn't miss anything. I'm preparing the package with a DocuSign so that when the borrower receives this email with the loan documents, all he has to do is just click, 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 and sign because he's already reviewed the draft copy. So he has any questions that he has had, I've already answered those the day before closing. So at closing day, he's just ready to sign. We're ready to rock and roll. So then if, let's say there's real estate or commercial real estate involved. So the borrower would receive that DocuSign package. Then he's going to either have a mobile notary or he's going to a title agency to execute the wet signs of the documents. So we have to sit sometimes and we're like, how is this going? How is this going? How is this going?
Because logistically, you're not there.
I'm not there.
That's different these days.
Yes.
Because you're doing DocuSign closings.
Yes. Now, at Florida Capital, if you remember, that's where I told you I started at, we would have our borrowers, because we had a lot of local borrowers, they would come into the bank. I'd sit with them at the table, watch them execute and sign. We shake hands. I give them some chocolate, and we're done. You know, it's like high five. You did it. But with the DocuSign, it is a lot different because you wait for the borrower to execute, then it comes back to me. I have to make sure we didn't miss any signatures. Very important. Also, with the titled documents such as mortgage deeds, warranty deeds, you know, security agreements, making sure that all of those are executed correctly. That's where Chandler comes in to play, our attorney, and he reviews, make sure you know everything is good. I review, make sure all the documents are good. If we say yeah, it's good, and then we fund. So it can be really simple. Or you could hit roadblocks at closing. There's just so many different ways that things could go. You would hope that you're prepared enough that at closing you don't. And that's where I love my job. I do my best, Ray, to prepare for that closing so that at the table, there's no questions. It's smooth sailing. All you have to do now is just execute, shake hands, here are your keys.
Like most of you, I use outside counsel to close my SBA loans. And when you bring in outside counsel, they become a critical part of the process. So you can't just bring in a firm that dabbles in SBA. You need a firm that focuses in it. Lewis Kappas is one of those firms. Lewis Kappas is a nationwide specialty law firm with decades of SBA experience that can help lenders navigate SBA compliance in the modern landscape. Look, SBA lending is complex and riddled with gray area. You need counsel that can provide clear advice so that you, as the lender, can make an informed decision. You can't just send every deal GP. But compliance is just the baseline. Communication and customer service is also critical, and that's where Lewis Kappas shines. Their SBA team is experienced, professional, and understands not only the legal side, but that these are real-life transactions for real people. So check them out, follow them on LinkedIn, Lewis Kappas, or go to lewiskappas.com. I mean, that's what I'm trying to get to, because you've been doing this 7 years. A lot of the closers I've worked with have been doing it 25, but you're doing it in a way that's like on another level, in my opinion. And I've been doing it for 12 years. I haven't been doing like that long, but I've been doing it a little bit longer than you in the SBA space. And the role has evolved a little bit. And you know, I don't know if you know this, but like, you're crushing it as a closer. You're one of the best, if not the best closer I've ever worked with. And you have, less SBA experience, let's say. And I think that is hugely to your benefit, because now you've started in the day and age where it is DocuSign. It does exist. People do want to move quickly. People have different expectations. And the role has shifted from like, maybe it used to be like paralegals and processors kind of going in, and we're talking about just paperwork. What it is actually nowadays is you are like controlling a lot of different parties and trying to land a plane on a certain day. And there's a lot of weight to that. How do you deal with that?
That's where my stress comes in sometimes, right? If I'm going to get stressed, it's always going to be right there at that point. I take a deep breath. I have to. Sometimes I have to walk away. I have to get up. I go outside and take a deep breath because it can be challenging. I could be reaching out to Mr. Borrower and say, you haven't signed yet. Why haven't you signed? Your closing is supposed to be done by 11. And let's not forget the fact that there is a wire cutoff time. So if we want to receive, if the borrower and seller want to receive their funds same day, let's not procrastinate here. We have got to keep things moving. So that's a little bit of where sometimes things could be on hold or there's a pause. Borrower will say, I left my phone. But how did you do that? Because let me go back to something. The day before closing, every borrower I've ever worked with, our borrowers, I call and get a feel of their temperature. Like, how are you feeling? Are you excited about tomorrow? This is your dream. It's going to come true. Do you have any last minute questions? So I ask all these things. I make them aware of, okay, we need wife to be present because she's got to sign a document. Let's say if there's real estate that they share ownership in. So just to prepare them for what is ahead, because then for me, that kind of solves for the antsiness that they're feeling and my stomach being in knots when I don't hear from them. But again, you will sometimes have issues. One of our borrowers left his cell phone somewhere, so he had to go get his cell phone. Well, our closing was like at 11 o'clock and he had to drive an hour. So then it's up to me to keep things flowing. So for me, so that things don't get hectic and out of range, I call the title company. Hey, Mr. Borrower is running a little late. Okay, are we good? Yes. I've never had anyone say, oh, no, we're not. No, if he's not here on time, I've never had that happen. So it's just a mindset. It's the mindset of, I'm going to close this puppy today and nothing is going to stop me. That's kind of how I get through it.
It's the mindset is key. And it's like, if you think of the job of a closer, like there's a way for a closer to close a loan without, they just do basically what they need to do is get all these closing documents and they all have to be a certain way and then we could close. And that's like this. But what you're doing is taking it to the next level and bringing it to life in a way where it's like you're taking on the weight in a really vigilant and graceful way, and you're doing those extra things because no one's telling you to do that.
It's because I care. I really care. At the end of the day, it's our pod, right? I want us to have a good name, not just our pod, but our company that we work for, because our goal is to have repeat customers. So if I do a good job at the beginning, the middle, and especially at closing table, they're going to remember that. They're going to remember that. I had a borrower not too long ago, and you may have remembered this, from Florida Capital. He has spice and tea shops. He said, Shelise, when he found out I was leaving, wherever you go, I'll come because I want to open more locations. And I thought, oh, wow, this is great. And so he came to me, even from another bank. I mean, he could have went with the same bank, but he was like, Shelise, I want you to help me close another shop. But of course, things didn't work out with us because of the project that he had, the size of it. And that was okay. The point was he wanted the experience that I gave him as a closer. And that's important to me.
Huge compliment. And it's like look, I've done a few hundred closings, and I do them from the BDO seat, and it just getting to the finish line and they're not super mad is that's kind of like hard for some people to even do. The biggest complaint I get when I hear people talking about SBA is in closing, and we don't have that at our shop, and I think you're the reason why, but honestly, the whole team of closers here, it's actually it's the strongest team of closers I've ever worked with.
Yes.
So we don't have that issue, but a lot of people out there do, and I hear like, oh, it's like a black hole. I send documents in, I don't hear anything from 2 weeks, and then it's like, okay, and that's how it drags on, and it's like that communication piece is the most important piece in closing, and you're
It's
amazing at
vital.
that.
Thank you. It's vital. It's vital. You've got to. So, for instance, like we have broker deals, right? Some brokers
Yep.
bring us some deals and they want to be the center,
Yeah.
they want to be the go-to. But there are times when I feel, and not all the time, but there are certain times when I feel like I want to call the borrower because at the end of the day, he's my borrower and I'm his closer. It's my job to make sure that he knows I'm on everything that he needs or any questions that he may have. So I may get an email and the borrower may email just me. He may not even copy you. And he'll say, Shelise, I have a question about insurance or life insurance. Who do I give this to? And I love that because then he knows that I'm a key person. Even outside of the broker, yes, we're going to include them on everything, but just having that one-on-one relationship with the borrower himself, when there is a broker deal, it matters. It's important.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, and we have a slightly different model because there's a bunch of different models in SBA. There are some where someone like me would be the front lines with the borrower and you'd be in the background. Here, we put you out front, but we also put a loan coordinator named Alexa, in our case, right alongside with you.
Yes.
So now you have me, Alexa, you, the broker, the borrower, our counsel, the seller's counsel. So first thing I do is I try to fade into the darkness because that's one less person to deal with.
Right. And I appreciate that because and let me just tell you why. Not that you do anything wrong, but I like that, Ray, because that shows me that you trust me. And that's, as closers, we want our BDOs to trust us. We want you to know that when you give it to us, it's in our hands. I treat it like a little baby. You know how that is.
Yep.
Delicate.
Yep.
It's a delicate thing. So it's in my hands. And you trust me to do what I do to get us to the closing table. Right? So it's important.
Yeah. And, one of the questions I was going to ask you later was like, if you were going to give a BDO some advice, because a lot of BDOs struggle in the closing department. And I see it all the time. And ultimately, it's the last part of the process. I mean, not really, because you have servicing and you have to go run the business and whatnot. But the closing is a big, day where it's like we're all working towards this day. And so the closing is the last leg of that process. And the BDOs, they get hung up because, closings never go completely smooth. Like something's going to come up one way or the other. But for whatever reason, they have trouble and they ask me, like, how can my deals go smoother when I close them? Like, what would you tell them for advice?
Well, BDOs are fantastic, phenomenal, right? We need
here
you all. We need BDOs, right? Such as yourself. I feel that bringing in deals that have been vetted like 100%, what I mean by that is let's try not to have any surprises because the way our shop works is when it gets to the pre-closing phase, that's when I'm jumping in. But prior to that, we have underwriting and we have our famous Todd, our loan associate who goes in. Yay, Todd. Alexa doing her thing. Just being able to have deals that we don't have surprises when we get to midstream or pre-closing, right? We have a borrower who says, we're going to take a piece of collateral. And he says, I have 2 previous mortgages. That's it. But when we go in to do searches, it comes back there as a 3rd mortgage. So now that, like, how did we miss that? Was it the borrower? Was it on our end? I choose to say it's the borrower because we ask all the pertinent questions in underwriting. But just being able to vet the deals as stringently as possible in the forefront. And then when it gets to me, I can rock and roll because I am with you. In our pod, our goal is to try to close a loan. I know, I don't know if I should say this, but within 30 days, we can do it. I mean, we've pretty much done it once before. I'm pretty sure.
It's very possible.
Yes,
you need the right borrower, the right transaction.
Yes, we do.
But surprise like that is going to pop up. And yeah, they didn't disclose something on their personal financial statement, but there's some other basic things BDOs can do, like, make sure they form their entities and have the structures.
Yes, structure definitely.
If that changes in closing, that always gives us a little bit of a oh, now we got to,
Yes.
switch it up. And
Understanding who your borrowers truly are, or who owns the collateral real estate compared to who's bringing in or who owns the assets of that business, because those can be two different entities, right? Most of the time it is in a CRE deal. That's what I'm talking about. But, like we're working on one now that had that issue. I'm like, Ray, so there are times when I have to call you and say, hey, I need you to jump in because we're getting conflicting information here. Who really owns the real estate? Who owns the assets? What are we doing? Because sometimes the brokers, they're only going by what they're being told without looking at documentation, I feel. So, and you squared that away from me. So,
yeah, well,
absolutely.
And I mean, the working relationship is like the key. I mean, everyone's got to know their role and play their role.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can build a trust. It's kind of like a catch-22 sometimes, because I had to trust you before I really knew you. Now I know you're one of the, not only the most amazing closers, but like just amazing person or people, one of the most amazing people that I've ever met. But you have to give somebody the opportunity to be trusted and for them to come through. And so that's kind of that pivotal point, because if you always step in and do all those things and step on a closer's toes, they never have the opportunity to step up, and then you're in this dysfunctional kind of relationship, and it's harder to get out of it.
Absolutely. And that can be a nightmare. I mean, that could be a nightmare. I like your tenacity. I like what you're doing here. This is phenomenal. I'm a fan.
Oh, thank you.
I watch your podcast. But it's important to know, like we said earlier, that the trust of the BDO is there for our closers. Like you said, we have an amazing closing team at Fundex. We really do. All the ladies are great. And we have, such as myself, that's been doing it 7 years, to all the way up to 25, 30 years worth of experience. So that's a lot of experience. I love our closing team because we can come together as closers. We bounce questions off of one another. Even before I come to you, I may have already bounced it off of Kathy or Regina, some of Ashley, our seasoned closers, which is important. That's really important. So that way I know that when I'm coming to you because I've checked it out. I know what's going on. I understand, what's required there. So it's important to have that team and that camaraderie, and more than ever, the trust. Because when I first became your closer, I thought, oh boy, he's a high producer. Shelise, you better get with it, girl. You better get with it. And so when I met you and we talked, I mean, it was like, you were like, okay, I'm just going to step back and let you do your thing. And you did. And that made me happy. So that made me want to produce more for you. That made me want to work harder for you as my BDO.
Well, that is, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps, first of all, but I mean, that's like the stuff people want to understand and hear. I mean, it's amazing because I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I'm trying to figure this whole thing out on the fly, but like, part of me is I'm probably too busy to even, get into the weeds on all this stuff. And that probably helps me, I guess, because I have no choice. I couldn't do everything.
Right.
I just think that the relationship between the people internally is like the number one thing. And I do think it's a problem in a lot of different places for many reasons, because here we have kind of like a good steady work kind of load where we're all like pretty much busy, but it's not like unmanageable to the point where we can't do our jobs well. But I know at some shops, the closers are asked to do a lot, and that's at every shop, but at some shops it's like really, and then you're barely able to stay afloat. So you are going to drop the ball. So if you don't set it up right, it doesn't help. It doesn't help.
At Florida Capital, I keep going back there because that was my first stepping stone, but I was everything. I was the loan processor, associate, closer. I did everything from step one all the way to closing. And that was really different, and that was pretty hard. So transitioning in my mind mentally when I came to Fundex as a closer, I'm like, oh, I have to give someone else control now?
Right.
Because I was so used to being in control and having my notes. And I hope no one kills me for saying this, but I kill trees. I really do. I'm sorry. I love paper. I'm a paper girl. So I have all of our files. I print out my credit memos, not all of it, just a few pages that are pertinent. I have that in my file. I have my my CL, my commitment letters in my file, because I need to always go back to those documents. I'm trying to adjust to looking at everything online, but I'm one that marks everything
No,
up.
please. If
I mark it
keep
up.
if it means, we keep closing these loans as well as we've been doing, please kill the trees.
Kill all the trees. I hate
Well,
killing
I'll plant
trees.
new ones for you. How about that?
Please,
I'm gonna write that
please.
down. I'm gonna plant a tree for Shelise.
Yeah, so I mean, that's important to me. I have to do that. And so that keeps me on track, right? I can go back to my file. I tab different areas on the commitment letter that I have that are key. So that way I can go back to that and know what I'm doing.
No,
stay the course.
Trust me, a lot of people do that.
Stay the course.
By the way, when you did join, because what's it been now? It feels like a year and a half that you've been here.
About 15 months, a little over a year.
Yeah. So what was your sense when you came here? I mean, it's all remote, so it's kind of weird in that sense. It's new.
It was weird.
So what were you feeling like when you first came here?
I was super excited. And honestly, I really, really was, because I had met Rachel previously when I worked at Florida Capital. She helped me with something. I was trying to go to one of the Nagel courses and take that. And
Rachel's our director of operations.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. She is. Hey, Rachel. But I took that course and I remember seeing her name. So when Jessica, who's no longer with us, and Rachel interviewed me, I thought, Rachel Hunsinger, I know that name. Well, it was the Rachel that helped me when I was at Florida Capital. And so we kind of chatted about that. And then I kind of sensed that she was all in because I wanted to be in. I wanted them to like me, of course, and hire me. She was like, okay, we're going to be back in contact with you. So it was one of the best interviews I think I've ever had, because it was really kind of like what we're doing now. It was really low key. I didn't feel like I was going to sweat bullets, but coming on board to Fundex, it was different, right, than banking. For sure, right? Because the banking world, you have a little bit more guidelines compared to SBA. Not that we don't here, we definitely do. Things are just done a little bit differently. We still get to the same path in the end of the road. It's the same. We have to compliantly. But it's just a different world, two different worlds. So when I came on and I thought, how do we connect? How do we all talk? Because everyone at that time, we had the New York office, right? And so then learning that we have to, do Zoom calls, that was different. That was very different. Like, okay, and then you got to show your face. So then I'm like, okay, but I'm working from home. Really? What if I don't want to put on makeup? I may not want to put on lipstick today. But then our environment is so laid back. As long as you're looking presentable, then that's great. We don't want anyone going off the haywire there. But as long as you look presentable, it's great.
Yeah.
So that made me feel even more comfortable, right? We've had a lot of team buildings together as a company, allowed me to get to know different people in different areas and different departments and operations, accounting. So it's really been amazing. It's been an amazing journey so far.
Listen, I want to talk about the kickoff call.
Oh.
So the kickoff call, everyone calls it a kickoff call. All the shops all around the country knows exactly what we're talking about. But the kickoff call, the kickoff, the closing. This is an important call, and I want you to explain what your goals are on the call, because you run that call. I'll let you go ahead and just explain, what are you trying to establish on that call?
So the first thing that's really important to me is to find out when my borrower wants to close this deal.
Smart.
What his expectations are. I have this on my checklist in red, bright red letters. What is the expectation, right? Because then from there, as we're going down the checklist, I can determine, is this going to really be doable? Are we going to have a little struggle? What's going to happen here with this expectation of the closing date? So that's key, right? Then I'm validating. Let's make sure you know your loan amount, right? You do understand that, which they do. They have the commitment letter that they've executed. The next thing is making sure that they understand what the deal entails, right? I need to go over insurances. If it's just a business acquisition, I want to make sure that, hey, this is pretty good. We can get through this checklist and to the closing table really quickly. I need the borrower's participation. So I'm pushing for them to, one, stay awake Don't fall asleep during this process. I call her my Alexa. She's my Alexa. She will follow up because I'll say, Alexa, I haven't heard from them. Please follow up for me, which is really great. She gets right on it, right? So if we don't hear anything, we're going to be calling you like, Mr. Borrower, come on. You said you were ready. You're ready to go. I'm ready to go. I want them, the borrower that is, to understand my job is pertinent and key to your success, to getting you to the closing table. But I need you to participate. So it's important that he understands when we give you this checklist of items that you need, get on top of it today. Like, I love to hear borrowers say, we're all on it. Like one of our latest deals, the family that we're working with, they said, we're ready. We're ready to go. We know SBA. We've done this before. That's a good thing. I love to hear borrowers say that they've already been through the process because then I don't have to go into as much detail, right? They know what we're going to expect as far as insurances go. So key items, making sure that the expectation of that closing date has been set, that we all are on the same page there. Equity, that's another big thing that I have to deal with, making sure that they understand.
That's a big one.
That's a big one. Who's to bring the equity? Where is it coming from?
That's the one where it's like it just never seems to get figured out till like the last minute.
Absolutely. Always.
Even though we try, but it changes. Absolutely. Or we get the statements and we get a surprise. But
yes, that happens.
Yeah, but I'm going to pause and just really dig into this because this is, you're setting the tone for your closing. And Absolutely. I say yours. You're in control. You have to be given the control, and then you have to take the control, and you have all that. And that's key, because if you don't, the borrower doesn't know who's in charge, or they think someone's in charge when it's really the closer, it can muddy the waters. So right off the bat, you are taking the bull by the horns. And on that particular deal, you asked them when they wanted to close. I remember this. They said, a date, and then you said, I think we can do it 2 weeks earlier or something like that, which was, it's doable, and we'll see. But like, that type of mentality is just like, for you to say that and not think to yourself like, oh, I have an extra 2 weeks to like sit around and maybe close this thing. Like, you're trying to smash records at this.
Yes,
and,
I really am.
And it's all compliant. Don't worry, people.
Please do not
trust
worry.
me. We're compliant.
We're compliant.
But that doesn't mean you can't put a little hustle into it and get someone has a certain expectation and exceed those expectations. Because then 3 years from now, wherever you are, they were going to call you because you got their loan closed. And that's the last part of the process that you remember. And it's the most tense part of the process. That's where the rubber meets the road.
Absolutely. I'm not sitting there. This is key. I'm glad you brought that up because I think for a lot of closers, we want our BDOs and our pod members and team members to know as closers, we're not just sitting there thinking, well, I can go get my nails done today and I don't have this to do. No, it's not that at all. We want to get your loan to the closing table. Oh, trust me, we want that more probably than the BDO does because it has our name on it, right? It's our stamp of approval that we've done our job and we've done it well, right?
Right.
And we want that borrower to have a smile on his face at the end of the day. It's like, this is your dream, and we made it happen for you a lot sooner than what you expected. That's something I've been shooting for in my mind mentally.
You're curating an experience. I'm just saying you're going above and beyond with the closing because a lot of people in the industry are used to I don't want to say the bare minimum, but like I've been on some excruciating closing calls. Where there's no building of rapport. You're jumping right within 2 minutes, you're reading articles of incorporation. And it's like you're just reading down a checklist. You do what everyone would just love every closer to do. And it just seems to come natural to you. But you put things into context. You talk about timing. You go a step further. You explain things. And you do it in such a personable way to where everyone loves you. And I've gotten brokers, for a broker to compliment a closer, guys, it's a little...
Never hear that.
I'm just saying, like, but that's what it takes. And it's hard. What you're doing is not easy.
No, not at all.
But you kind of put your own spin on that closing call. You set the tone. And I feel like that is so important for closers.
Absolutely.
What other advice would you have for closers who want to kind of just step their game up and like be an all-star like you?
Well, okay. Well, I'll take that compliment. Thank you. Yeah. But here's what I would say. Tenacity. It takes a lot of tenacity, right? You've got to want this. I want it. I want to be better every day. I want to learn more every day. And honestly, I was just telling Kathy, hi, Kathy, our team lead, that you as a BDO, you have and are making me grow as a closer, because some of the deals that we get, we have to like use our imagination and figure some things out compliantly, right? Compliantly. And we get it done. At the end of the day, we get it done. But I would have to say you have to love what you do. If you remember when I said once I fell in love with SBA, I really fell in love with SBA. I don't see myself doing anything different today.
Yeah.
I really can't, because I really enjoy what I do. It keeps me sharp. Having to learn the SOP and all the changes that are coming. So just the tenacity and the love for it. You've got to love what you do. I love the chair that I sit in.
Yeah. Well, you talk about tenacity. You have the skills of a BDO, like in the traditional sense. Like you could be a BDO. No, you could. I mean, if you wanted to, it doesn't sound like you do, but like, I'm just saying, like, and I'll give you the example.
Okay.
You like, borrower says, I want to close on a certain date.
Mm-hmm.
It's either possible or it's not.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not, you tell them it's not.
Mm-hmm.
If it is, you tell them it is. Or you say, if you want to close by X, you got to get me everything by Y. The date is such a big thing, because we all know what has to happen between now and that date.
Absolutely.
And to be confident enough in talking about that date, but also firm enough to tell a borrower no when it's just not possible.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of closers will say yes because they're afraid to say no.
Mm.
You'll say no when you have to say no.
Yes.
And I think they respect you for that. And you're a straight shooter, and you're just able to manage that part. When I say that, managing of the borrower is a skill that is probably one of the hardest skills that you've definitely have and are continuing to hone.
I think it's people skills, right? You have to be a people person. I've had some people, some friends that I know that say, I don't like people. Well, how do you not like people? I mean, I'll never understand that, because I love people. I love smiles that I can bring to a borrower's face. And if I can do that, check mark, it's already done. I mean, they're going to be a repeat customer for us. So that's important to me.
I was actually going to bring that up, that you probably heard that throughout your life, that you're a people's person, because I was going to say you're such a people's person, and that's definitely working for you. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it, Shelise.
Okay.
You're an amazing person, an amazing closer. Thank you so much for taking the drive down here and doing this.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I feel like I am a movie star now that I got to sit
I don't know about
on your podcast.
the YouTube star.
YouTube. Okay. I like it. I'll take that.
Yeah. I think this episode will do really well, because
I hope so.
we don't get a lot of closers even willing to come on camera, because you're a people's person, so you said yes. I'm thankful for that, but I would love to have more on, and hopefully you inspire more to come on. So
that would be great. And I just want to leave saying this: SBA it's it for me. It's really it for me. I love the role. As far as borrowers go, we welcome you. We want you, but we want you to also understand that it is our goal as your closer to get you to that closing table. That's what's on our minds, right? We want to get you there quickly, fast, but also compliantly. So meeting the expectations of what that closing date is, setting that precedent right at the beginning is key.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it's the exact phrasing you used on the borrower kickoff call. So like as soon as you said our goal is to get you to the closing table as quickly and compliantly as possible, it's like, I hear that every week on the closing call. So it's like perfect.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, thank you so much, Shelise, and I will see you on our pod call.
Absolutely right.
All right, that's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode of the Art of SBA Lending. And if you have any feedback or suggestions, email me at ray@artofsba.com. Until next time, ta-ta.